Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
You're watching
Fanboy.
Fanboy, fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
Dot, I assume Tom.
There might not be an I in team, but there's definitely two in this man's name. Justin Davis, how are you today?
How are you? Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Hey, man, I'm happy to talk to you. The Boys is a phenomenal series. Season 3. You are Young Stan Edgar. You got some big shoes to fill in playing a younger version of Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah. I mean, he's always been one of my favorite actors ever since Do the Right Thing. You know, I've watched him ever since I was young. And then, of course, recently with Mandalorian, and let's not get into Better Call Saul and you know, Breaking Bad. But he's always been one of my favorite actors. And I knew that even being able to read for this, you know, it was just, I was very humble and grateful and very fortunate to be able to work on this.
Is it strange to kind of do a cadence impersonation of him, where you have to speak a bit slowly and make sure that the point is made?
Well, no, I mean, what's awesome is that the musicality definitely it lends to the character. Yeah. And I think just always, you know, every scene that Stan Edgar gets to be in, you know, there's it's almost like a quiet symphony, you know, on the way he moves. So to be able to work with, you know, that sort of like that focus, that musicality, that cadence, I love it. You know, I always love period pieces too. And a lot of times that ends up coming up, you know, and Shakespeare as well. I was trained in the theater, so I was all, you know, iambic pentameter as a kid. And now to almost bring that, you know, musicality back to this character, it's really fun. It's really fun.
Listen, I've repeatedly said to everyone I've interviewed in association with the comic book itself, like Derek Robertson and everybody that's been a part of the show, if you never read the comics, The Boys is a hard R. And if you read the comics, it's a soft PG.
Yeah. And then you say that just as Herogasm comes this week, which is very... Perfect timing.
Listen, Herogasm still in the show is tamer than the spin-off comic.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, it is. Yeah. But I love that the show is one of those things that pushes the envelope in everything that it does. You know, there's no other superhero sort of genre like this. You know, there's superheroes that, you know, will blow someone up and they blow up sort of pretty. This one will blow you up and completely eviscerate you. And you know, that's what happens when you get blown up or something like that happens. So I love every way that they've been able to push the envelope with this show.
Right. And then Soldier Boy is just the greatest spin on Captain America that we've been able to see.
Pretty darn good, huh?
Yeah.
Pretty darn good. Yeah. I think it really takes the cake when it comes down to familiar characters that we've grown up on. And then even probably reading the comic, you know, back in the day, taking the characters that we've known in the comic and really completely expanding them and exploring them. And, you know, they're spot on. And you always wonder, you know, I mean, there is the Bizarro Superman, but you wonder what an actual Bizarro Superman or Bizarro other characters would be like in superheroes, how they would actually act in the real world. And I mean, Soldier Boy is just, once again, spot on for this universe.
What's great is that because you could never directly copy the comic, or else it'd never make it to air anywhere. Like it'd have to be some like back room, like German screening room in order for
some
it to
old
be
school
seen.
Cinemax show.
Yeah. You know? So I love how, like, even though it's toned down in comparison to the comics, this is in comparison to the comics. It's still like the visuals and the shots reflect the comic itself. So you have the aspect of the original influencing the current. And, you know, we're a decade plus removed from the original run. So, you know, sensibilities have changed in the last 10 years. Yeah.
It's great that, you know, it stands the test of time in a sense that you can sort of adapt it to what's happening currently or, you know, completely, you know, remove yourself from that. But it's awesome that those two parallels exist, because you know, there, if it did go further, you probably wouldn't be able to put everything on. But what's great is that it also gives itself room to grow in every season that follows itself. You know, every season just gets crazier and crazier. And that's the coolest thing about this, you know, is that who knows where season 4 is going to be. Like if this was the topper of the last, you know, then I can only imagine what's about to happen next.
You know, this is a bit of a departure from Boardwalk Empire, though.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were some effects. You know, we had the Tommy gun. We didn't necessarily have laser blasting eyes, but you know, we had a few things that blew some people up. But it's definitely a completely different show, and that's going back. That's, you know, one of the things that I love. Like I said, period pieces, being able to explore that time, and then playing Michael K. Williams' son. That was, you know, that was a dream come true before it was even a dream come true. You know, I remember seeing him at an event one year, and then the next year reading for the show and thinking, wow, if I, you know, that would just be very full circle to go from, you know, having this moment with you and then becoming your son. That, you know, and it ended up happening, and everything that man did was gold, you know. And I loved the way I was able to study his character development, because he was very big into music. You know, before it was acting, he was a dancer and a choreographer. So music literally was the beat of his heart. And he infused every character that he made with that same beat, with music that influenced the character. Maybe not of that time, because it would be a little difficult to find, you know, 1920s rap. But, you know, for like Chalky White, you know, Michael K. Williams, he would listen to Biggie and to Nas, and, you know, his playlists were just full of things that influenced the heart and the undertone of his characters. And, you know, working on that show was once again a dream come true, and I was still getting my undergrad at the time. So yeah, I had a blast. Not the same way as the boys, but it was definitely a blast.
Well, let's not blow up the university. Where did you get your degree from?
I went to Brooklyn College out here in New York City. Yeah. And it was awesome, because they were a commuter school. So it's not like you know, they had, I think, maybe opened one dorm at the time. So everybody would come in, you know, just for classes and stuff. But it was great because at the same time, like I said, I got to work. And then it was a little awkward going from like 16-hour days on a show like Boardwalk to then, you know, English class the next day. But it was awesome. It was awesome. I wouldn't trade that time for anything.
Here's what I love about New York. Everyone talks about like how huge it is. And then you realize like that their neighborhood is like a 2-block radius.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, my borough. And I was like, okay, that's another 4.5 miles, maybe.
Yeah.
You know,
especially
but it
Brooklyn.
seems like
Brooklyn's
the largest part of the
one.
world.
Yeah. Brooklyn's the biggest borough. You could fit probably the entire city inside of Brooklyn twice, to be honest. And that's what I love, you know, is, I mean, for me, that's my school was all the way on the other side of Brooklyn. So I would have to go back into the city and then, you know, commute back into Brooklyn just to get to classes. So that made, you know, everything a little more interesting in the mornings. But, you know, there's so much about this city that you start to feel like it is very small. And then you realize, no, your borough is huge. So you can go find something else somewhere eventually. You know, you're bound to find something in Brooklyn.
Right. In dealing with a show like The Boys in comparison to Boardwalk Empire, where one is HBO and then the other one's streaming, you're not constricted to that hard 30, hard 1 hour setting where it's got to be condensed. We can go 34 minutes. We can go 52 minutes. We can go an hour and 3 minutes, that sort of thing. How much more freeing is that, not only for you to at least improvise or extend the scene, and also for the editors that don't have to go, oh, this scene would have been great, but we don't, you know, we have to cut it out for time constraints.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so much more freeing to when you can work on shows that don't necessarily take the commercial breaks, because then you're not necessarily locked into a lot of shows. What they'll do is, you know, it'll be like act 1, 2, 3, and 4, you know, because they're considering the commercial breaks, and they're throwing in maybe a blackout or, you know, something that'll, you know, bring you completely out and then thrust you into the next thing. But what's great is that on a show like this, you can sort of, and while it does go back and forth, you can still live out the full storyline and life of a day without feeling like you have to take a break or there are page breaks, essentially, you know, because for network shows, sometimes some of those breaks end up being, you know, they don't necessarily consist over the course of a day. But on a show like this, you can get a full day, you know, and it'll be like, oh my gosh, that felt like a week. But so much has happened in the world of Vought in just a day, like it's impossible to believe. But on a regular show, a lot of those commercial breaks will be multiple days, or, you know, the course of a week or the course of a month. And it's amazing to have the opportunity to have time and not just be, you know, confined to those 15-20 minute slots that, you know, most of network television does fit into.
All right, so we got to ask you the superhero question of them all.
Yes.
Of the 7, whose powers would you prefer to have?
Oh, of the 7, whose powers would I prefer to have? Well, I think there's something powerful about being, they always say what's better to be loved or feared. There's something powerful about choosing Homelander, but for me, not that I'm sneaky in any way, but I always loved translucent, you know. I wouldn't want to have to get naked to completely disappear. I wish that like it could be everything that I had on as well. But I love this sense of, you know, being able to step out of the room without having to necessarily step out of the room. I've always been huge on having your space and then not having to leave your space to find something like the outside. So what does that mean? Okay, so for me, I'm like, I need a balcony. You know, the next place I move to, I need a balcony. Why do I need a balcony? Because I want to go outside without necessarily having to step into the world. And not that that's a sense of being invisible or taking away, you know, but I like that sense of, you know, being there without having to necessarily, you know, be fully seen all the time, you know. So just being able to settle and being your own space and ground, I thought translucence power was pretty cool.
See, now that's spoken like a true introvert.
Probably.
It's like, I want to be invited to the party, and if I go, I'm going to stay in the corner and watch everybody else have fun, but don't involve me too much.
Y'all go do y'all thing. I'll hold down the carpet. I'll hold down the floor.
Exactly, man. You know. You know, at least you didn't want Stan Edgar's job, man, because that's got to be even more stressful.
Well, I've got that job, so you know it had to be somebody other than a different job.
Someone a little more relaxed.
Right. I think we learned in the last few weeks that ends up being a very high intensity job. So it's something where I can kick back, disappear, and nobody will even know I'm there.
Right. Or imagine translucent at Herogasm. That'd be a surprise party in and of itself.
Yeah, it would. Inside jokes, yeah, it would.
Listen, people are going to watch it, and the people that have read the comics are going to figure out what we're talking about. So, you know, we're 50-50 on this one.
Yeah, they're going to have a good time. I think everybody's going to enjoy themselves no matter what.
Yeah. I asked Jack Quaid this because his mom is Meg Ryan, and she was America's sweetheart for the longest time. And I was like, how does America's sweetheart react to her son being in a series like this? And he's like, oh, my mom read the comics. And I was just like, all right, I did not expect Meg Ryan to read the comics. How did your mom react to this? Because she's like, oh, my baby's going to be on TV. And then all of a sudden sees what the show is. And like, that's where we put him.
Well, everybody was really excited because I explained, you know, for everybody who hadn't read the comics, my brother's a very big comic book fan. So, of course, he knew it and I knew it very, very well. But my mom was just different, you know, and she didn't necessarily know anything about it, but she was so excited to see not just that it was this genre, but, you know, this genre in this capacity. And even working on the show, I didn't expect to get any sort of reaction or people to really even take a lot away from the work, because on a show like this, you know, you think there's so many things happening all the time. You know, people will remember what happened in episode 1, you know, people will remember what happens, you know, this week, you know, but I didn't expect any sort of reaction toward my work. So when it came down to like even how much, you know, she had heard about it, and just the support of the show is just amazing, you know. And I think there are more supporters out there, or it feels like there's more support for a genre like this that pushes the envelope in this way than there are for things that are, you know, played a little more safe. So they were really excited. They were there's some things that I have an aunt that's very religious. I'm like, maybe you can skip that episode. Don't watch that one necessarily, or move somewhere around, the episode a bit. But they were just really excited. And, it's Amazon and it's this team, and they couldn't have wanted anything better.
Is it interesting that it almost has like a Trekkie level of following, where people would be like, in season 2, episode 4, at like the 15th minute, this is going on here.
Yeah.
Like, well, I wasn't in that episode, but okay, this is great.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it at all. And I think what's beautiful about the show, and I've been following the numbers of the show recently too, and now they're at, just over 1 million people on Instagram. And what's been great about this is people who weren't or just didn't necessarily know the show before, they know it now and they're hooked. And that's what's been great is, getting new people, to take a bite on the hook and really, come along for the ride too. And that's the best part of it, is because, that team, I think Foster too, while staying on task of, bringing the comic book to life, it's just about, audience appreciation and giving the world what they want in a way that they haven't seen it before. Everything with Ant-Man, they said exactly where they got the inspiration from. And it's great to see that they're pulling not just from their source material, but from what the world loves to see, and sort of, what everybody wouldn't expect to happen. But, we all go, oh, well, what would happen if this actually, and they take that chance and they go there. So that's the best part of it.
And more importantly, what was Giancarlo's reaction to you being his younger self?
Well, I'm still waiting to hear. It's been a little bit, but I know he's busy and there's a lot going on with this. So I don't even know that he necessarily gets to see the show from week to week like everyone else does, or if he's, gotten it and been able to sort of watch it all so far. But I know the man's a very busy man. So hopefully I hear something. But yeah, I just wanted to do him justice and hope that, for the audience that I did Stan Edgar justice as well.
Well, you did do him justice. And the way my paranoid mind works is that like, he's making me sweat. He's going to make me wait till like the end of the season before I even get like a message. And it's just me like,
I hope not. I hope, because I've been on the edge of my seat every week, ever since. So I hope I hear something. But yeah, he's an awesome guy. And I just, like I said, I'm humbled and grateful to be playing the younger version of him. And I've loved him since I was a kid.
Well, maybe we'll get a spinoff and it'll take us back into the youth of Stan Edgar and Soldier Boy.
I would love that. I would love that. And I think that there is a lot of room, there's a lot that this hints to, and I would be excited and just here for whatever if they would like to have me, I would love to be a part of it.
And if there's any youthful flashback scenes in Mandalorian season 3 when that finally gets off the ground,
listen, I am there too. You will find me somewhere with the soups. You'll find me somewhere in space. Wherever I got to be, I'll be there.
Yeah. Do you play any instruments by any chance, or because you talk about musicality quite a bit, so I don't know what your musical background is. I know that you're also an alumni from the same university that Alicia Keys went to. So
yes. Well, high school actually, professional performing arts high school, and that school seen a lot of talent over the years, a lot of talent, and there's just so many people that have come out of it that I can't even fully get through the list. But back then, I can't sing. I'll just say that straight away. I can't sing. But what was great with Boardwalk Empire was it made me step out of my own comfortability as well. On the show, I was supposed to be a piano player, and very, very good one at that. And efficient in stride piano, which is difficult. It's like working your left and your right brain at the same time. It's hard, but it was great because it pushed my my musical background to a completely different level. And I was never able to read music. I'm still not able to read music, but I was able to just hear and listen in a completely different way. And I was able to take that and apply it to my acting when it came down to the voice, because the voice is almost like the piano of the body, And one thing that was very important to me with building Stan Edgar was the musicality, like I said, but then also every character that I built, I think the voice is another character of its own. And, you can hopefully you can hear me on the show and think, oh, well, I know exactly who that is without necessarily having to see him, you know? And I think that's important for all character work. It speaks a lot about the person and about, you know, their background and all those different things. But it all started out with Boardwalk Empire and sort of learning how to play the piano then and relating that to characters and, you know, how to find the musicality of the person without necessarily having a piano in front of you. So yeah, it started out back then.
Well, you're doing something right.
Hope so.
Yeah. So what is Justin's guilty pleasure then? I mean, you know, obviously it's the introvert, extrovert, you know, you get your extroverted stuff all out in your art.
Yeah.
And then you pull back and you're like, I want the balcony because I want the fresh air, but I don't need somebody running over my shoes with their bike, you know, to do a what's it called? Do the right thing throwback. We got to incorporate
word. Exactly. My
you know?
Jordans. Exactly. No. So for me, it's, you know, I like to travel. I like to get away, and I get away to remote places where there's nobody around. I like to, you know, I do Airbnbs on farms with just like the family and the animals there. Or I'm a gamer, you know, I really love Grand Theft Auto online. I'm level 468 now, I think. I was just playing earlier, and, you know, those end up being some of my escapes, you know, just getting away and sort of, I can never unplug because there's just always something happening now and I want to be on it. But getting out of Brooklyn and out of the city and, you know, seeing more of the green and less concrete and glass, that's something that I really love. And yeah, like I said, GTA. So if anybody's out there, I am just one. That's my gamer tag. Hit me. Meet me on Xbox. I got an Xbox One, so meet me on Xbox World.
Sounds good, live. Man. See, now you're going to get people that are going to be challenging you to gaming all of a sudden.
Nah, see, I'll team up with you, but I ain't trying to, like, you know, because I can't have nobody talking out there like, oh, yeah, I beat Stan Edgar while I was on. Nah, that's not going to happen. I'm always number one.
So you got to keep the record straight. That's good.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
You got to be like Mayweather. Mayweather is the greatest defensive boxer ever, but he makes sure, like, towards the end of his career, he's like, I'm not going to jeopardize this 41-0 record.
Exactly. That would be off brand. You don't mess with the brand now. Like, yeah, that would be off brand, man.
And listen, I can talk bad about Mayweather because I'm this far away that it's not, you know, I'm not dumb enough to say that's Mayweather's face.
Right. Don't get caught up in first class with them like they did with Tyson the other week, you know.
Did you see that, dummy?
Yeah, that sometimes you just have to let the champions be champions. Don't start running your mouths. Just, you know, sit back and enjoy the fight.
I think Mike Tyson has gotten to George Foreman level where, like, if you go back and watch fights of George Foreman in the 70s, he was an absolute savage. And then you get into the 90s after he retired. Like, he won the world title for a second time at 44. And then he finally retires and he's like, I got a grill. And everyone's like, oh, it's Grandpa George. He's going to make us lunch. And I'm like, dude, that's still George Foreman. I'm not messing with that left hook.
Right, exactly.
And then same with Mike Tyson. Oh, Mike Tyson's so humble. He studies philosophy. He's so relaxed. I remember those combinations in that uppercut.
Exactly. And don't put it past him because it might take a bite.
Yeah. You can say that over there. That one's on you. That one's on you.
No, I only say that because I'm also, and I know this isn't a whole different show, but I am very excited. Just other actors that have done amazing work. I am very excited for what they're about to do with the Mike Tyson series. And I think Jamie Foxx is, you know, I think his transformations are always awesome. And I can't wait to see what he does, you know, and I hope that they go through the entire life, because I think that's, you know, of course, in the moment it ends up being dramatic, but, you know, and never to glorify someone's life into a show and, you know, exploit them. But I think his story deserves to be told. And I think he definitely has a background that people, once they hear his story, will be more compassionate with and more understanding of him with a lot of things across the board.
Yeah. Well, Michael Jai White did a great Tyson biopic that, you know, about 20 years ago. So we can only see with big budget what we can do now.
Yeah. I'm excited for it.
So is it more difficult to play a character that was written on the page that you have to bring to life? or to play somebody who already is alive or has lived and not do an impersonation of them, but still do them justice?
I would say that it is probably more difficult to blend the idea and the character that someone has already been introduced to, only because now you're, and this is what I think I didn't expect to necessarily receive after everything came out. Now you're trying to, or not even trying to, because for me, I didn't expect any of those things to come about, but I just wanted Stan Edgar, for this version of him, you know, to be the younger version, that there would be growth that could happen for, you know, that there's still time before he becomes who we know him to be in present day. And I think for a lot of people that don't necessarily envision or know that a younger version is coming, there's the idea that they already have of who and how he should move and act and things like that. So it's about blending the character that you're building and allowing there to be time for growth and understanding that, you know, that it's not going to please everyone. And that's a little more difficult than taking a character off a page who hasn't been worked on or developed at all, because you have the freedom to sort of make him your own. And, you know, it'll be very original, you know, with a character that's been established. You're now just, you know, you're bringing some of their nuances, most of their nuances, to their younger self, but then finding different things that the audience might not know about them. But then again, with the character on the page, you're completely making those things up. And that's a little more, there are a few more options in that. And I mean, I love both sides though, you know, because there's the confinement of, no, this is here, so stick to this character, build out on this, expand on this, you know. And then there's also the beauty of and freedom that you have when something hasn't been established. And me, myself, I like them both.
We're going to do a little bit of a spoiler for everybody waiting for the entire season of The Boys to be released so they can power watch through it and binge watch it.
Yes.
Being the younger Stan Edgar, we see the calluses forming on the road to selling his soul. Whereas, you know, the older version, we've already seen what's happened when he sold his soul. So I like that dichotomy. And that's the biggest spoiler that we're going to give in your portrayal in comparison.
Yes. Yeah. He, at least for me, like we were saying, I was big on cadence and musicality when it came down to the voice work, but I definitely wanted to give him some room to grow. And, you know, like I said, I hope to see more things happen from the 1984 crew and from the idea of Soulja Boy in the past. And you know, I hope it hints at things coming back and watching that growth happen for multiple characters. But yeah, I wanted to give him some place to grow and exist until he becomes the person that we know to love and hate in the present day.
Now, is it easier or more difficult to have seen yourself in print ads for like Nike and Apple and Pepsi? Or is it easier to watch yourself perform? Like, you know, because sometimes people can't have a hard time watching them, just seeing pictures of themselves in a weird pose versus the performance. And sometimes people will not watch anything they've ever done ever.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always been the actor I've always watched my own work only because and of course you're never going to end up playing the same thing again, but you know, it's about understanding camera relationship, you know, and understanding what you're doing on camera. And if something is working, like I said, not that you would use it again, but you can explore other ways of, you know, how that physicality, that movement, you know, that worked. Maybe there's a different sort of thing that will work on another side. But when it comes down to print in commercial versus film and TV, I think it's been easier to sort of see the print and commercial ads, because those end up, you know, while they might live very fully for a while, it only ends up living for a while in the sense that, you know, they could run the mess out of it for a few months, you know, and I think, oh, well, gosh, that doesn't really look that great, but it'll go away in a few months, or I could be very excited about it for a few months. But when it comes down to things like this with a show, they end up living forever, and for me, like I said, I go back and I watch the work. That way I know what works on camera and understand camera relationship for myself as the actor. But I think it's a little more difficult sometimes to watch the dramas and easier to watch the commercials and print ads, only because then I'm like, oh, well, I wonder why they decided to use that take, or I could have gone a little further there, or did I, so then you start to question what you did and on that day. But I love watching the work.
Don't curse yourself about the ad maybe going away, because we still see those print ads of Chuck Norris action jeans from the early 70s keep popping up.
Those are still around though. And sometimes in New York City, if you go back far enough and you peel back the layers of the billboards that are in the subway, you'll go and you find it like an ad from like 1978. And so I wouldn't even be surprised if that popped up on the E-Train sometime next week. So yeah, you say that, but I wouldn't be surprised here.
It'll be there right next to the last phone booth in Manhattan.
Right?
Yeah. It'll be hanging up in the Smithsonian with it.
Which, by the way, they said when the film phone booth came out, that was supposed to have been the last phone booth that was removed. But I just saw another ad last week that they ended up removing the last phone booth again. So I'm like, oh, there's more last phone booths. Okay.
That's because they keep finding them.
New York is a paradox. Yeah. Got it. I never realized.
Listen, man, Superman's out of luck.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I know. What's he gonna do? He's gonna have to go hop in the closet on like a cell phone now because there's nowhere else for him to change.
Right. See, at least the Flash was able to keep it in his ring. So,
right.
For the people that don't understand the history of comic books in DC and everything else that the boys originally came from and spoofed, Superman used to change this thing called the phone booth. It's where you actually put money in the phone to talk to people. I think our immune systems
got them all over the UK.
Yeah. Well, our immune systems were a lot stronger back then because of all the germs from the public phones.
Right. And then we used to drink from the park water fountains too. So, we didn't have to worry about catching anything back then.
Except maybe rabies.
Put the vaccinations in the water. Right.
Yeah. We joke about the print ads, but, you're still a very young man. I don't know if you have any kids or not, but no. Your great grandkids see your version of the Chuck Norris action jeans ads from, say, Nike or Puma. What do you think their reaction would be? Would it be similar to ours of seeing those old Chuck Norris ones, or even further back, like the Sears Roebuck ones from 100 years ago?
Well, it's interesting, and I'm not even trying to point this out, but I put this one up here because it happened when I was, I think, still in high school actually, and it's not running anymore, and it's never going to run again. But one of my favorite ads that I did is just back here, and it's Bring Home the Green with Sprite, and it's with LeBron James for the Olympics back then that we shot with him. So there are a few that maybe my grandkids will go, oh, that's a good one. But then there are definitely a few where they'll go, oh boy, why did you do that? And then, sometimes those end up being the jobs that, with photos that were reused for different companies and stuff. So they end up getting just used a bunch and, for years and years. And I definitely have those come up. But there are some like this that I think that they'll be happy about.
You weren't wearing your Kobe's when you were filming with LeBron, were you?
No. I think they just had me in some Chucks.
They're like, look, we're going to be at least bothersome as possible. So
right, exactly. Can't hurt any endorsements. Yeah. Don't want anybody upset.
Yeah. As things continuously progress, you still have this humble attitude about it where, in this industry, a lot of people's ego skyrockets out of nowhere. It's like, I got the big job, and then boom, first thing I got was the Ferrari. And I'm like, slow down, man. Maybe get a fancier watch first before you to the Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean,
like a Moldova before you jump to the Rolex type deal.
Exactly. Yeah, slow down a little bit. Enjoy it. Don't just blow it all at once. That's always been huge for me, though. I've always just been very humble because I've seen both sides of this industry, and I know the roller coaster that it's on. You'll be up one moment and then completely have the rug pulled from under your feet the next. And, it's been something that it's not microwavable to me. It's not just a quick and, TV, like a TV dinner that I just want to snack on and, eat real fast. This is something that I wanted to take time, and I care about it, and anything worth having, it takes time, and you put effort into baking a cake. You follow all the steps, and, and then it's sweet. And, you take all of these sort of bitter ingredients on their own, and then you make it into something beautiful. And that's exactly what I want with this career. And it's never been something that, that I could just go and blow everything really fast over. But like I said, I want to enjoy it and enjoy all facets of life that come along with it. And I always said I never had to be the famous person. I never had to or wanted to be the one who was, chased down the street. I just want to be able to do the work that I love, and the work that, people connect to and can find their sort of guilty escape and guilty pleasure with. And if I'm able to do that at the end of the day, then I'm happy.
And there's one more thing we need to add for your parents' sake.
Yeah.
We don't want you to be on E! True Hollywood Stories.
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily want that, unless it's like, unless there's a way to have a spin on it and it's a good way, nowadays. But back in the day when I was growing up, E! True Hollywood, they exposed the darker side of the performer's life. And, I want to be able to take away the great things from this.
Be the boring guy on the balcony that's hiding in the forest when you want to escape everybody. That way they'll never find you. Exactly. Now you get me. This is why I'm trying to be translucent in the woods. Nobody will ever know I'm there. I'm gone. I'm off the grid. Well, Justin, it's been a great pleasure talking to you today. I've had a lot of fun. I'm glad we could crack some jokes.
Word, me too. I'm all about the jokes. So it's been a good time here, and I'm glad to, you were able to have me today.
Absolutely. Remind everybody about your handle on Xbox for Grand Theft Auto, so if they want to play with you, and where we can find you on social media.
Yes, my handle on Xbox One is I am just one, and you can find me on Instagram at official Justin Davis, Justin with 2 eyes.
I don't think there's any other Justin Davis with 2 eyes, so
Well, good. There better not be. Shoot, because then I'm coming for them too. Don't mess with Stan Edgar, man. I keep it cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah. And then the daughter that you raised, that's a spoiler for another episode. So.
I ain't telling nobody about that. They'll just have to go watch episode 4 and 5 and see.
Exactly. Justin Davis, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Have a great one.